Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Before we continue on, I will remind you again that I am not a lawyer of any kind and I am not certified to practice law in Vietnam. I'm just simply a foreigner from the United States that knows about the labor code. Now, we're going to continue on with the last video that we did, talking about how to settle a labor dispute. Well, we stopped right about here. We're going to move on to Article 189 because this is a brand new video, so we got the whole 30 minutes, which means I need to go ahead and set my timer before it's too late. Let's see. Timer started. Finally. All right, now I finally got it. All right, now Article 189, Article 189. One version's in English, the other version's in Vietnamese. Now, let's move on. The entitled parties. The parties are entitled to, by consensus, request the Labor Arbitration Council to settle the dispute in any of the cases specified in Clause 7, Article 188 of this Labor Code. After the Dispute Arbitration Council has been requested to settle a dispute, the parties must not simultaneously request the court to settle the same dispute, except for the case specified in Clause 4 of this article. Yeah, I hope you remember all this. All right, now, moving on. Within 7 working days from the receipt of the request mentioned in Clause 1 of this article, an arbitral tribunal shall be established. Within 30 working days from the establishment of the arbitral tribunal, it shall issue a decision on the settlement of the labor dispute and send it to the disputing parties. In case the arbitral tribunal is not established by the deadline specified in Clause 2 of this article, or a decision on the settlement of the labor dispute is not issued by the arbitral tribunal by the deadline specified in Clause 3 of this article, the parties are entitled to bring the case to court. In case, Clause 5, in case the disputing party fails to comply with the decision of the arbitral tribunal, the parties are entitled to bring the case to court. So, yeah, right there. All right, moving on. Time limits for requesting settlement of individual labor disputes. And, all right, so we're going to go ahead and go over this. The time limit to request a labor mediator to settle an individual labor dispute is 6 months from the date on which a party discovers an act of infringement of their lawful rights and interests. Clause 2. The time limit to request a labor arbitration council to settle an individual labor dispute is 9 months from the date on which a party discovers the act or infringement of their lawful rights and interests. Clause 3. The time limit to bring an individual labor dispute to the court is 1 year from the day on which a party discovers an act of infringement of their lawful rights and interests. In case, Clause 4, the requester is able to prove that the aforementioned time limits cannot be complied with due to a force majeure event or the unforeseeable event, the duration of such event shall not be included in the time limit for requesting settlement of individual labor disputes. All right, so essentially it says you have 6 months for a mediator, 9 months for the arbitration council, and 1 year for the court. Now, somebody once told me you have 2 years to take something to court, not 1. But I don't know. The longer you hold off taking something to court, you know. But anyways, so that concludes the how to settle a labor dispute. The other thing is, remember what I mentioned earlier about, gathering evidence, having an interpreter with you, going to the People's Committee, specifically going to the labor area, the Department of Labor. That's what it's called there, the Department of Labor. You go there, you talk to them, you present all your evidence. They will give you a hearing within like a week, normally about 3 days, and you attend the hearing, they attend the hearing, and your employer attends the hearing, and then with your interpreter, your lawyer, hopefully also, not 2 in 1, but that'd be kind of cool also, that you go ahead and try and reach a dispute settlement, and then if you can't, well, take it to court. All right, so according to my timer here, we got about 20 minutes left, so we got a lot of other stuff to talk about. Now, since we've pretty much already talked about just about everything in here, what comes on now from here on out is essentially stuff for settlement of rights-based collective labor disputes. We don't need to worry about any of this because that's just for industrial workers and people that are in unions. This doesn't really apply to English teachers. But again, if you're curious about these labor laws, you can contact me and I can send you a free copy. So you can go ahead and have your copy. Now, we're going to go ahead and move on, and as soon as I see something interesting, we'll go ahead and talk about it. Strikes. Yeah, strikes are only allowed by unions and stuff like that. Closure of the workplace. At least, okay, here's something to talk about. Notice the temporary closure of the workplace, Article 205. I didn't even know about this one, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and talk about that real quick since it's already right there and we got plenty of time to talk about it. 205 right over here. All right, cool. Article 205, Article 205. Now, move it up right there. All right. At least 3 working days before the date of temporary closure of the workplace, the employer shall publicly post the decision on temporary closure of the workplace at the workplace and notify the following organizations: the representative organization of employees that organized the strike, the People's Committee of the province where the workplace is located, the People's Committee of the district where the workplace is located. Okay. That still has to deal with strikes and unions and stuff like that. I thought that had something to deal with teachers. My mistake. Before, during, and after workplace where a strike is prohibited. Strike is prohibited in workplaces where the strike may threaten national security, national defense, public health, or public order. The government shall compile a list of workplaces where strike is prohibited, as mentioned in Clause 1 of this article, and settlement of labor disputes that arise therein. Now, handling of unlawful strikes, state management of labor. State management of labor. Labor inspections. Article 214, one of my favorite things to talk about, because 9 out of 10 English centers wouldn't pass. Excuse me, still got a dry throat. We got about 18 minutes left. So, let's get through this together, shall we? Labor Chapter 16, Labor Inspection and Actions Against Violations of Labor Laws. Article 214, Contents of Labor Inspections. Inspect compliance with labor laws. Investigate occupational accidents and violations against regulations on occupational safety and health. Provide instructions on the application technical standards for working conditions, occupational safety, and health. Handle labor-related complaints and denunciation as prescribed by law. Take actions and request competent authorities to take actions against violations of labor laws. Now, I really, really hope you're paying attention to this, and I know the evil English centers out there are watching this too. Yeah. See, I'm actually teaching people about their rights so that they can go ahead and stand up and demand their rights and demand to be treated with dignity and respect. That's what I'm doing. Article 215, Specialization in Specialized Labor Inspection. The competence to carry out specialized labor inspection is specified in the law on inspection. Occupational safety and health inspections shall be carried out in accordance with the law on occupational safety and health. Right there. The rights of the labor inspectors. Labor inspectors have the right to inspect and investigate within the scope of inspection specified in the inspection decision. A prior notice is not required for surprise inspection decided by a competent person in case of urgent threat to safety, life, health, honor, dignity of employees at the workplace. Actions against violations. Here's the big one right here. Article 217. Actions against violations. Clause 1. Any person who violates of any provision of this labor code shall, depending on the nature and seriousness of this violation, be held liable to disciplinary actions, administrative penalties, or criminal prosecution, and shall pay compensation for any damage caused as prescribed by law. Clause 2. Where the court has issued a decision which declares that a strike is illegal, any employee who fails to return to work shall be held liable to labor disciplinary measures in accordance with labor laws. In a case an illegal strike causes damage to the employer, the representative organization of employees that organizes the strike shall pay compensation as prescribed by law. Any person who takes advantage of a strike to disrupt public order, sabotage the employer's assets, obstruct the execution of the right to strike, or incite, induce, or force employees to go on strike, retaliate, or inflict punishment on strikers and strike leaders, depending on the seriousness of the violation, shall be held liable to administrative penalties or criminal prosecution, and shall pay compensation for any damage caused in accordance with the law. 217, Clause 1. Any person who violates any provision of this labor code. Right there. Yeah, it's right there. Shall be held liable. Depending upon the nature and the seriousness, shall be held liable to disciplinary actions, administrative penalties, or criminal prosecution. You would not believe how many evil English centers I would love to see have people arrested because of how badly they treated people throughout the years. Oh, yeah. I got a story since... Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk a few more things, and then since we have a little bit more time, I got a good story for you. Okay, so exemption and reduction procedures for employers having fewer than 10 employees. Any employer that has fewer than 10 employees shall follow the regulations of this labor code and shall be entitled to exemption and reduction of certain procedures specified by the government. Now, we're going to go ahead and move on. So, most of these amendments here have to deal with the elderly and stuff like that. Now, this labor code has been in force as of January 1st, 2021. And that was only 2 years ago is when this labor code first came into effect. So I want you to think about that. This labor code has been in effect since 2021. 2 years. This has been in effect, and not a lot of people know about it yet. It's going to be in effect for at least 10 more. Now, I'm sure there will be more amendments and stuff like that in the future. But, well, here's the thing. This, in my opinion, will go ahead and probably be the last video here of this labor code series. But I will still go ahead and talk about it from time to time. Now that I've shown you everything that's in this labor code, it is up to you to go ahead and stand up for yourself. Excuse me. Now, just a quick recap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you one thing and show you one more time about what the employer's forbidden to do real quick. We're going all the way back up to Article 3, and we're going to go ahead and look at definitions real quick. Now, 6, 5, 4, 3... Clause number 7, forced labor means to use force or threat to use force or a similar practice to force a person to work against his or her will. Now, forced labor can mean many, many, many different things. For an English teacher, that means breaking Article 17, Clause 1 by keeping the passport, diploma, and other stuff that a person needs to force them to continue to work longer. Now, moving on, I wanted to go ahead and, sexual harassment defined by the government. Number 9, in the workplace means any sexual act of a person against another person in the workplace against the latter's will. Workplace means the location where an employee works under agreement or as assigned by the employer. Now remember, sexual harassment can happen to men as well as women. It can happen to men as well as women. So just remember that. Now, we've already went over all this other stuff. Article 8, forbidden actions. I wanted to go ahead and go over this one real quick, too, before I tell you my little story. All right, so we got Article 8, forbidden actions, right here. Article 8, Article 8. All right, they're both the same. Labor discrimination, we already talked about that. Maltreatment of employees, forced labor. Yeah, it is forbidden to mistreat your employees. Right there. So if you're an evil English center, you should know it's illegal to mistreat your employees. Don't call them stupid. Don't go ahead and steal from them. Don't do anything like that. It's illegal. Maltreatment of employees, right there. Taking advantage of occupational training or apprenticeships to exploit the trainees or apprentices or to persuade or force them to act against the law. Think about that. Employing untrained people. This is the big one. Article 8, Clause 5. Employing untrained people or people without occupational training certificates to do the jobs or works that have to be done by trained workers or holders of occupational training certificates. Now, what does this mean? This means it is illegal for English centers to go ahead and employ bag packers and tourists as English teachers. Yes, backpackers and tourists are not English teachers. Doesn't matter where they come from in the world. If they're a backpacker or a tourist, they're not properly qualified. They're not supposed to be hired, and Article 8, Clause 5 says so. Clause 6. Persuading, inciting, promising, advertising, or otherwise tricking employees into human trafficking. Exploiting of labor or forced labor. Taking advantage of employment brokerage or guest worker programs to commit violations against the law. Now, what does this mean? Well, essentially, it means human slavery. If you somehow participate in that, yeah, that's illegal. Now, illegal employment of minors. Now, essentially, let's see. What was the other thing? I think we already talked about that. Okay, yeah. All right, so, like I said earlier, this is the last video that I'm going to talk about the labor code in this format because I have both the labor code in English and the labor code in Vietnamese right here. So, what I want to do is say this. I'm going to go ahead and tell a story now about the last English center I worked for. Not this last one, but the one before that. Well, technically the one before that too. It was about this time last year when I was having problems with my English center. And no matter what I did, they wouldn't help. They didn't care. I kept telling them, the classrooms are filthy. They need to be cleaned. They didn't care. I asked them several times, please talk to the principal, talk to the cleaning ladies, do something. I mean, there's like mountains of garbage in these classrooms and nobody's cleaning it up. The kids aren't cleaning it up. The sweeper ladies always seem to miss the rooms that I teach in, so there's like mountains of garbage everywhere. And I just asked them, clean this up. And they wouldn't do it. And I kept telling them things like, these students are being really violent. I need some help. They wouldn't do anything. And essentially, it just got to the point where they went ahead and tricked me. They went ahead and told me, oh, well, we want you off on this day because of classes, some kind of celebration or whatever, but we want you to work on this day. And I go, okay. So I'm off on that day, nothing's wrong. I don't feel anything, whatever. And what happens is I get a text message going, why aren't you in school? And I go, what? It's like, were you supposed to be in school? No, I was told I was supposed to be off for the day. And then I check my messages and I go, I know what the push notification said for Zalo. I know what it said. But the guy went ahead and I saw the text notification. I saw the Zalo push notification that said one thing. So I didn't check the Zalo for the rest of the night. Because I just went ahead and swiped right to get it off my screen. And it went ahead and did that. I didn't see it after that. So I didn't realize he changed it until afterwards. And I go, that's bogus because I didn't change it. I didn't look at it again like I should have. So I thought I had the day off, and apparently I didn't. So they tricked me into doing that so they could go ahead and have an excuse to give me a fine. And I told them I wasn't going to pay the fine when I go ahead and get my, essentially what was going to be my final salary because of the fact that they were already tired of me and they didn't want to employ me anymore. So it was going to be my last salary, and I told them I'm not going to pay a fine. Well, what happened was that I went in there that day and I argued with the director, the manager, whatever you want to call her, for an hour and a half straight. Over why, like, their long litany list of violations that they have against the labor code. And of course they don't care. Nobody cares when they break the law. So I went ahead and told her, that, you broke the law. And I got all this evidence that proves it. And she did something shocking. I went ahead and told her that she's basically stealing from foreigners. And she agreed. She went ahead and said that she will, she's very happy to steal from foreigners because of the fact that she's been doing it for like 12 years and she's not going to stop. You see, these people, they steal and steal and steal from English teachers all the time, and they're not repentant. They don't care. They know that foreigners don't need to pay for work permits. They know foreigners don't need to pay for TRC cards, but they make you do it anyway so they can save money. You see what I mean? They know they can make you do it because you're desperate for a job. You're willing to be severely mistreated. You're willing to have stuff stolen from you to have a job. That's what they're counting on. And that's what makes me extremely angry, is because of the fact that when I first came to Vietnam, before I started teaching English, I thought everything was hunky-dory. I thought everything was fantastic. But then after I started teaching English, I saw how things really were. It's like I said in one of my shorts. It's like I said in one of my shorts earlier, how I was forced by my English center to give kids a passing grade that would not have passed otherwise. That's the reason why you have kids in college today that can't speak English. It's because of that. You can send kids to English centers 4, 5, 6, 7 nights a week. They're not going to get any improvement in their English skills. You know why? Because they don't apply English outside of school. That's it. You have to get them interested in speaking English outside of school. So you could go ahead and say speak Vietnamese at home, but speak English when you go outside or something like that. Try to make it interesting. You know what I mean? But the thing is, though, is that with my English center, the one that I hope to build one day, and the one I hope to hopefully pass down to my daughter one day when she's old enough, that if your kid does not pass, your kid does not pass. My English center will not give fake passing grades. Your kids would have to stick with the curriculum, do the work. They would have to be good kids because we're not going to tolerate disrespect at all. My English center is going to have no more than like 5 kids per class, and each kid better be on their best behavior because I don't want the English teachers to have to deal with, disrespectful, naughty kids. And I used to be a public school teacher. I know what disrespectful and naughty is. I know. I've had kids literally straight up give me the finger in class. And when I go ahead and tell the TA to send them to the principal's office for giving me the finger, they just go ahead and walk the kid around the school block and then bring the kid back into the classroom and the kid sits down. Oh, well, the supervisor said to come to him at the end of the school period. Okay. And then, of course, nothing ever happens. The kid doesn't get reprimanded, stuff like that. I've actually had kids pull knives on me. Yeah, those little razor knives that they say, oh, well, that's just used to cut paper. Yeah, it can also be used to cut human skin, too. And whenever I see a bunch of kids playing with razor knives, it makes me very uncomfortable. That's the reason why I wish they wouldn't allow them in school. Every single time I saw one, I sent the kid to the principal's office. You're not supposed to have that here. That's a knife. Knives are not supposed to be in school. I come from the States. You bring a knife to school, that's expulsion. Doesn't matter if it's for, building models or what. You bring a knife to school, you get expelled. But that's the reason why I want to change the English teaching sphere here in Vietnam, because the only way to do that is, one, to teach teachers their rights, to teach people their rights in general, so that they know what to look for, what's good, what's bad when it comes to their employers, so that they can choose good employers. The good employers thrive while the bad employers suffer. That's what I want. I want the bad employers to suffer so badly that they either change or they go out of business. Because the good employers have the right to make money, they have the right to make their employees happy. Think about that. I want good employers. I want everyone to be treated fairly. I want everyone to know their rights. That's the reason why I started this labor code series in the first place, is to show people that you do have rights and you do matter. Anywho, we got about a minute left until the timer counts down. So, getting back to what I was saying earlier about, my teaching experiences and my English center and everything like that, is that with my English center, yeah, the fees, they're going to be reasonable. They're not going to be too expensive, but they will be reasonable. Not only that, but you'll get top-notch teachers. Not just, some random dude that is backpacking for the weekend in Vietnam. No, you're going to get a real experienced teacher that will teach your kid English. And with me, I expect the best. I pay the best. you bet I'm going to pay my teachers and my staff well and give them all the benefits I possibly can. And with me, as an employer, I would only ask for no more than maybe $60 million a month. As the top boss, the CEO of my company, I'd only ask for about $60 million a month, and then go ahead and take the rest of everything else and just spread it out to all my employees, to the company, to everything else. This way they can go ahead and benefit more. See, here's the thing. Like the CEO of Costco, he only makes, I think it's like 500,000 a year, something like that. While his employees makes like $22 an hour, something like that, just starting out at Costco. Yeah. That's because he took the high road by asking for less salary so that his employees could have more salary. That's the kind of boss I want to be. And that's the boss that I am in my heart. So, I'm going to go ahead and start to wrap up this video here. We got about 4 minutes left till it's over. Again, this is the last video of this labor code series. I sincerely hope that you all learned a lot. Now, if there is another law that you wish for me to talk about, such as the law on religion, law on adoption, law on family, stuff like that, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to talk about it. Now, there is one more thing that I wanted to go ahead and mention, is the fact that, just like I mentioned in my previous videos, the fact that this channel really needs donations and tips in order to keep it running. So if you wish to donate cash, goods, services, stuff like that, please go ahead and send a donation request to tuxedoshadow@gmail.com. You can also send a chat request to the Google Chat app. If you're in Vietnam and you have access to Zalo, you can access the Zalo group. All the description for everything is in the description below. Now, from here on out, I'm going to be talking about other things that interest me and stuff like that. So, if there's a topic that you want me to talk about, if there's something special, let me know. Make a comment, send me an email, send me a chat request. Hey, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? Just let me know. And as you can see, my e-set keeps popping up. This is what I use, and I need a full subscription for that as well. So, again, if you want to donate, send a chat request or email to tuxedoshadow@gmail.com. Have a good night, everybody, and I'll see you again soon.